Hi, I'm Cody Alexander. Welcome to another edition of the Art of X Show. We are continuing our coverage summer series here on the Art of X Show. We've gone through quarters, we've gone through two read, cover two, we've gone through bracket. Today, we will be finishing up our middle of the field open series before we head into cover three. Now, what we are focusing on is really a redesign of some basic schemes that have been around for football forever that are considered middle of the field open. Now, cover six, if you are from the Saban system, means weak rotation. Cover three, which is unique to that system. Most of the time, you're going to get some sort of an odd number. But in cover six, a lot of people understand that as quarter, half. And so we are going to be talking about kind of the redesign of quarter, half using Fangio system, talking about their Zeus tag, which I've written on MatchQuarters Substack, and I'll have that linked in below. Now, Tampa 2 technically is a middle of the field close coverage. You could consider it a cover three, and we're going to talk about that when we get to that set. But there has been a completely redesign of Tampa 2. And really, though, and it's not a redesign. People have been using kind of these rotations and things and how to get to cover two a lot. But using cover two as a base way of lining up and then having your mic just run through the middle just isn't something that people are doing anymore. Because the middle of the field close dominance at the NFL level, people have had to figure out and mix match how can we play cover two without necessarily always showing the static alignment. So we're going to get into that. Now, with cover six, there has been a redesign. Typically, when you run cover six, you're going to put the quarter side to the nickel. What we're seeing now and what a lot of teams are starting to do now are kind of the way that Fangio does this, and he kind of targets where he wants that cover two side to be. Typically, it's to the nickel with quarters away. And I've always talked about how you can buy that boundary safety or that weak safety back into the coverage and kind of use him differently. When we talked about safety spokes, that was one of the big topics that we talked about. You can steal them back. You can have them work with the backside corner. You can have them close the post and climb. There are a lot of different things that you can do with that backside safety. So instead of always using rigid rules and putting the quarter side, how can you get an overlap or a double on the number one receiver or the top receiver to the passing strength, which would be where the nickel is, and then how can you use that boundary safety as kind of a stopgap in the middle of the field? So what we're going to focus on really quickly is how Fangio uses the cover two side and the quarter side to create rotations in the middle of the field. Usually when you say rotations, people think, oh, automatically you're talking cover three. I really like the way that Fangio labels it as rotations, but then also talks about how that boundary safety can be used as a tool. In modern defense, you can't have these static structures. Most offenses already understand the beaters, and then they will target you with that. So how do you create layers in the middle of the field when you have a middle of the field open defense? And you can do that playing this cover two, which allows the safety to stay high and quarters away from it, which adds a safety in the middle hole. And so when you get these concepts that work to the middle of the field, now you have a layering system in the middle of the field, or you have a cutoff valve for any of these deep crosses. Again, if you have a boundary corner, everything unlocks, because a lot of the time when you have that quarters away from the nickel, you're buying the boundary safety back, you're going to be playing some sort of a managed technique. Now, what we are going to look at is the Zeus tag in the Fangio system. And Zeus really just means we're going to stuff a receiver. So think of one double, right? We are going to play cover one, but that high safety, that one that's going to, the post safety, is going to double a certain receiver. So this is essentially what we're getting, and we're going to go through that. So in Fangio's cover six, or cover eight, he calls it, you're going to have the cover two side to the nickel. Okay. You're going to get a Lou rotation, meaning that they are going to play cover two to the left, right? So we're just typical alignment, 2x1. Let's just say the defense is, remember, offense is right-handed, defense is always left-handed. So we're going to get a Lou rotation. We're going to play a squat corner over top of these two receivers. Squat just means we are not playing hard to the flat. We're not going to undress the safety. We're going to play a trail technique. It's very similar to the squat technique I talked about back when we were talking about two read. I'm going to let the ball bring me down. I'm not going going to play a hard trap. We are going to see this a lot of times in this Zeus tag is if the star receiver is number one to the passing strings. What this does is it creates a funnel to the receiver, and he's going to funnel to the high safety. The nickel is going to play what Fangio calls a deep hook. I call it a wall two. He's essentially going to wall the vertical of two. And then, of course, you still have push rules and everything off of that. But what we're trying to do is build a triangle or a 3/2 on top of these two receivers. The boundary safety, the safety that's away from the cover two side, we're going to be playing quarters. Now, if we get any kind of 3x1, we're going to play what is called tricks. Tricks is solo, it's poach, however you want to label that. He's going to be closing the middle of the post in the middle of the field or the post if 3 does not go vertical. If 3 goes vertical, he's going to buy that. If 3 goes out and 2 runs a deep cross, he's going to buy that because it becomes the new number 3. What this really does is it unlocks that front side safety to be able to stay high in the coverage. Again, we're trying to get a double on the best receiver. If the best receiver is number 1 outside, I don't necessarily want to be worrying about the slot running across the field. If you were to say, to read, right? We're playing cloud coverage, what I call cloud coverage, and we get 2 verticals. Let's say the offense is running a divide scheme out of a Y off set. So a typical NCAA offense, typical spread offense. We've got a tight end in the C, back set weak. We've got our 3 receivers. If I get the number 1 receiver to the passing string to run some sort of a vertical or a comeback, I get the slot running a deep cross, and then I've got the X running a let's say a post route. What can happen is even into read, you could have that free safety nailed down on that over route, because in your rules, you are stating, hey, we are taking the vertical of 2 up and back. So if it's a deep cross, it goes over the top. We could arguably tell that safety to nail down. Now I've got 2 safeties on the deep cross and I got no one to protect the post. This fixes that. Now the safety can stay high. We get a vertical outside release by 1. We know we're getting a trail technique. That safety is going to ride the hash. We get an overlap, a vertical overlap. I know it's going to get cut off by that boundary safety. And now that field safety can stay high. He can still work that hash. And remember, in the NFL, a lot of the game is played from the middle of the field because of the hashes. So if I do get a post by X, I'm in a position to play that middle of the field. Or if I get a vertical by 1, I can play that. So what this allows that free, it really unchains that free safety from having to nail down and really play some man match on these vertical routes. It also has a cutoff valve in the mid hook or that middle hole region. Yes, the mic is playing the middle hook, but you don't want him necessarily to be really high. So instead of constantly trying to play Tampa 2 where he's in conflict and now my nickel and my wheel have to overlap on those, we're going to play vertical first and we're going to nail down on anything late. And that boundary safety that's kind of rotating into the middle of the field, he can either play the dig from the backside, which is a big concept in the NFL, especially from a reduction, but he can also then cut any kind of deep cross. And what it does, if you look at it mentally, is let's say I get a double post, right? The typical air raid double post, I get a deep cross with a kind of a skinny post or a hash post from number 1. What that allows that free safety to do is really stay high and help that corner, which is what we want. If I'm not concerned about the deep cross of 2, I know I'm going to have a cutoff valve opposite it. I really want to get the double on the number 1 receiver, right? That's where the best receiver is. So now that's how I get that. So we're going to do this so we can get layers in the middle of the field. So really what we end up with, if everything kind of works to the middle of the field, we have a mic in the low, we have our weak safety or boundary safety in their intermediate, and now our field safety high. So if they try to vertically stretch us in the middle of the field, we have 3-layered system, but we're also going to have a hard presence on the outside and a funnel for number 1. I think this is why I really, really like this. Typically, if you are going to run, and what I have run forever, what I've talked about on Match Quarters forever, is that it's kind of independent of each other, right? I get 2 receivers. They're wide, they're traditional splits. I'm going to run quarters. Typically to the boundary, you're going to get cover 2. And this is for a lot of defenses that allow them to adjust, because where are we getting it tight? Now what I can do with this system is I'm actually going to flip it. I want to run cover two to these two receivers, and we're going to do it in such a way that really allows us to play kind of the vertical routes, these cover two beaters that we are going to now have an answer to. So sail routes, flood, things that are really going to try and push those cover two, fade out in those hole shots. Now we've kind of mitigated the risk because we're forcing that throw all the way outside, and we're getting the double if we have anything else. We're creating a triangle. A lot of times in the NFL, you're just not going to get four verticals. Yes, have we seen clips of it? If you look at clips in a vacuum, yes, you can find clips of them, but just in volumes, you're not getting a ton of four vertical routes. So what are you getting? You're getting a lot of layered routes, a lot of Y cross. We're getting a lot of these high-low concepts, and this allows us to funnel that. So we're building a zone defense based on where the best receiver is, which is, or the passing strength, which for us, that would be number one all the way on the two receiver side. So what we're getting is a really what the Fangio system calls cover eight. We're getting a half quarter, and using that boundary safety again as a toolbox instead of constantly always trying to play quarters. Now, what if the boundary safety, or what if the number one receiver is to the boundary? Let's say we constantly want to get a double on the X. Instead of running a man match concept like cone, we can run a regular squat technique or cover two concept to that. And we're still getting that funnel, but we're not getting punished by taking two players and defending one. We can still get a run read by the corner. We can still detach the will. He can be aggressive to the box because we know we're kind of getting that cone action off of that. So what we get away from it to show the two receiver side. So again, we're typical spread offense. We've got Y in the C, running back away, two receivers to the defensive left, one receiver to the defensive right, is that we can now play a just mod quarters over the two receivers. And then we're going to get that funnel or that triangle built on top of the number one receiver. So it's a way that we can really get a funnel. We can play cone, we can play bracket without actually really playing that man match. It's more of a zone, and we're really, again, creating layers. So we get Y cross, we get the double post. Now we're buying that boundary safety high, the field safety's in the intermediate, and the mic is still in the low. So even if we get that vertical stretch in the middle of the field, we're still getting that layering process, but what we're doing is we're matching the number one receiver. So yes, this looks like, if you were to watch this on film, it would probably get labeled as cover six. It is quarter, half, but the way that this system is designed is that you can actually take advantage of the number one receiver, and you can rotate. That's the language that they use. Rotate this coverage to the number one receiver. Now, what if we get it in the slot? Now we have other quarters tools that we can use. We can run bracket, right? If number two is their best receiver, how can we get a bracket on that? We run bracket. That is essentially playing cone on number two or playing quarters. You can play regular quarters with the nickel playing what I would call like a bang to buzz or a quarter flat, which is I'm going to work hard through two, keep working at a 45. We're going to create a box over that. And so what we get there is a zone. We get a box. We're building a box because he's in number two. Now, why does the Fangio system not run cover two to a slot that's a stud? They can, but if we're in this Zeus tag, what they're trying to do is where can we get the two DBs on top of the best receiver? If he's out wide, we have a corner and we have the safety. If he's in the slot, we have the nickel and we have the safety. We can do certain things. And what it does is we can still play cover four away from it. So in their sense, they will give a quads call. So if this is Fangio, they're going to give a quads call, and they're going to be able to play cover four over the cross. So that's essentially like you want sky across the board, you're just going to call quads. And so they give a quads tag, and within that you can have the rules. You could play bracket on number two, you could play the free safety outside, you could play it almost like a switch. Hey, we're getting a lot of corner, we're getting a lot of snag from number two. He wants to run that outside, outside breaking seven. Now we can move him outside. So you can keep your quarters toolbox within that, but it's going to play like quarters. It's not going to play like cover two. And so backside, again, if it's 3x1, Y's in the C to the two receiver side, and we're going to get our tricks, and we're going to play regular quarters coverage away. And it doesn't change if we get 4 open. Normally, if you are looking at the Fangio system, you are going to get, and the stud is in the number 2 area. That's when you're going to get your quads look, is that they're trying to just play quarters, just kind of our regular quarters all the way across. So cover 6 nowadays can be so many different things. In fact, I was watching the Ravens this past week, and they against the Bengals, they ran. It looked just like you would see if you turned on any kind of Fangio system defensive coordinator. They're running cover 2 to the passing strength. They're running quarters away. It's an inverted cover 6, or what Fangio calls cover 8. He does have cover 6 in it, and that would just play like quarter, quarter, half. His cover 8 is half, quarter, quarter, which if you think about it is a little bit more intuitive. It's a little bit more fluid for what we're getting from a lot of these spread sets. And then the finality of it is you can have this Zeus tag to where you can actually rotate the coverage to their number 1 receiver. So you created an ecosystem where you can change your coverage depending on where the best receiver aligns. Now at the high school level, usually you can find the best receiver. He's in 1 or 2 spots. At the college level, you can find offenses that are not right and left. They do kind of move their guys around. But at the NFL, each week is a different package from the offense. They're building stuff on top of stuff. Guys are moving around. One week he was at 1 in this look. Now he's at 2. The next week he could be at 3. So you have no idea where the number 1 receiver is going to line up. So how do you kind of create a formationally based coverage? You can use the Zeus tag on top of that. You could also just run cover 8 and always have the cover 2 side to the nickel. And regardless of what the formation is, you can do that. But what I really like about what Fangio has built, if in his 2 high quarters and 2 high middle of the field open toolbox, is that he's redesigned cover 6. Now, again, I'm going to say this because if I don't, I'm going to have one of these older coaches email me. I understand. Dom Capers and Dick LeBeau, again, should get a lot of the credit for this. And don't forget Mora Sr. with the Saints. A lot of this stuff was developed in the late 80s with the Saints and the Philly Stars and of the USFL, the original USFL. And that it has kind of moved on. Dom Capers, again, there's a reason why Evero, who is now with the Panthers, who did a tremendous job with the Broncos the year after Fangio. I mean, a lot of it, he came from the Rams, goes to the Broncos. A lot of the language is the same, but it kind of has a more Raheem Morris, Dom Capers feel, not necessarily Fangio in his evolution. But again, there's a reason why Evero hired Dom Capers to be his defensive senior assistant for the Panthers, and that's because he is the originator of a lot of this stuff. So again, this stuff has been around forever. What is unique, though, is that they are doing this from a 2 high shell. Now, the middle of the field open stuff obviously is going to be played from a 2 high shell, but a lot of the stuff that you see, this weak rotation, it pairs really well with the weak rotation philosophy of the Fangio system, which is weak rotation cover 3. Quarters inherently, and I've said this before, is weak rotation. So by being able to have these kind of both these tools in the toolbox, you can create a gray area. And a lot of these quarterbacks and a lot of these offensive coordinators, when they look at it, they can't necessarily tell. And if you can't tell, then you can't run the beaters. And I was talking to several people that are close to the NFL about this, is just as they're trying to watch this and see, you're watching NFL film and you really can't tell. A lot of times the corner to the cover 2 side is the one that's going to be the tell for the coverage. Well, if find me an OC where the number 1 read for the quarterback is going to be that corner, especially the field corner or the corner to the passing strength. You're just not going to find that. A lot of times it's either the weak safety or one of the safeties. That's where they're getting their initial read from, unless it's like a called split field concept. It's only 1 read, and it's either you got the high or you got the low, depending on this one player. So to me, that layering system and then doing everything from 2 high, it really just builds that. So why are we talking about cover 6, right? Quarter, half. It's because it's got a new redesign, and a lot of teams are looking at this Fangio system, seeing the success it has against the passing game, and now they're kind of recalibrating it. Again, like I mentioned, the Ravens with McDonald, who is from the Raven system that has been around forever. A lot of this stuff is now kind of emerging, and I saw it there too. So something to think about going forward, even me in my brain, I'm racking, if I go back into coaching, how would I do kind of the sky cloud a little bit differently? Do you have just a regular base tag where we're running it formationally based and we're getting our sky cloud calls? Or can I create an 8 call where we can now run the cover 2 side to the nickel, and we can run quarters away, or we can play a Zeus tag and add all of these? So if you are looking for some kind of late summer ideas, some different tweaks, this is, if you are already running quarters, you already have this in your system. Now you're just adding a layer to it. You're adding a tag to it. Even, let's say maybe it's a Zeus tag because you know you have a team coming up that's going to play their guy all over the place, or you want to find a different way. Because I'll admit that in 2018, leaving that season and going into 2019 and even 2019 and beyond, I really felt I was way too predictable when you got 10 personnel 2x2. And I'm starting to look at a lot of these teams, and I'm starting to get a lot of 10 personnel that, you know, if you're watching on YouTube, it's this look right here. I'm getting 10 personnel, 2x2, 4 open, 2x2. And I'm getting a lot of predictability from me. I look the same every single time. Can I change some things up? Or how can I not all the time have to run quarters to away from the tight end, or be in a poach technique, or do some things like that? This gives me a little bit of an opportunity to change the way I'm doing things. So finished up our cover 6, going to transition now to our Tampa 2 coverages and kind of the rebirth of Tampa 2. Again, Tampa 2 technically is cover 3. Now, in essence, and we learned this from the Rams. The Rams are a great example of this year. What is the weak spot in cover 3? It's the flats outside, right? It's really soft. Go watch the 49ers play the Rams and take advantage of that all day, every day, even on Sunday when they play. So Tampa 2 corrects that issue. Now, again, on defense, anytime you take something away, you're going to give something up. So these Tampa 2 teams, they're going to take the middle of the field away, but it's going to be the illusion of middle of the field open. Now, what they're giving up is you're going to have a light box, because your overhangs are really the overlap players, and you're really only playing with 6. Your Mike's got to pop his feet, and then he's got to run the pull. Now, base cover 3, weak rotation. What does that look like? And why are we going over this, right? Because Tampa 2 is technically cover 3. Let's start with a basic cover 3. And again, why we're doing Tampa 2 before we go into cover 3, I think it's a great segue. So in a basic cover 3, both of your corners are going to be bailing, right? We're just going to talk country cover 3. Okay. We're going to get both corners bailing to deep thirds. You're going to have a post safety. Let's say it's a 2x2 set. So if you're watching on YouTube, I've got my 2 receivers, I got my tight end, I got my X receiver back in the backfield. Tight end is to the X receiver. We're playing cover 3. I'm going to get the free safety in the post. Both corners are going to be right, soft, deep third, chest deep, get deep, don't get beat deep, you know, all that stuff we were told as kids. Okay, my overhang is going to be the nickel and the boundary safety. Whether you're outside, inside, doesn't matter. You are the seam player, and then we have 2 hook defenders inside with the Mike and the Will. So we have our cover 3. Where is the weak area? It's the outside flat. So out routes are really big. If you and obviously this is if you're playing country 3 with your overhangs inside leverage, you're getting a lot of out routes, you're getting flat routes, you're getting 3 push, everything kind of attacking that flat area, and then they're reading the intermediate. You play too aggressive to the flat, they're going to curl up behind you because there's that natural space. So cover 3, how do I answer the issues that we see in cover 3? We play hard corners. So now I'm trapping the flat with both corners. My 2 hash safeties are now playing the deep third outside. I've got 2 wall builders on the inside, wall build and overlap, because remember, I don't have anybody in the middle. What's the Tampa? Where's it soft in Tampa? I've taken it from outside and I've put it directly in front of the quarterback. So when you see Tampa, a lot of times you'll see like a running back check down. Right? That's exactly what they want. They don't want you to take the shots. They don't want you to take the soft areas on the outside. They want you to throw to the running back 2-3 yards in front of the quarterback, live to play another day. Because when do you typically see Tampa? Traditionally, you have had teams, the Buccaneers, the Bears in the late 90s or 2000s, who played it almost as a base, but they also played a ton of different cover 3 variations off of it, because again, it's the same. You're just changing kind of where the X's are. You're now coming outside in instead of inside out with your seam players. So here, what you're getting is on 3rd and long, you're checking down to the back. I've got 2 overlap players and a Mike that can come down. Now we just rally it to the ball. We make the tackle. It's now 4th and 5. You're punting, right? So all we're doing in Tampa is building 3 triangles. We're building triangle outside with the corner, the overhang, and the safety, and we're building a triangle inside on the hash with the 2 overhangs, and then the Mike running through the middle as the pole runner. Now, this is traditional Tampa 2 versus a 2x2 set. What are some things that we're seeing now that are different? I think the Cowboys have done a great job of knowing that they're single high dominant, right? Dan Quinn is a cover 3 guy. He's been a cover 3 guy when he worked with Carroll. And then when he was a head coach at Atlanta, he gets to the Cowboys. He was really big cover 1 team his first year there. And what you've seen is over the past couple of years is this trend towards more Tampa 2 on passing down. So what do? You make it look like cover 1. Everybody looks like man coverage. And then what are we going to get? We're going to get the boundary safety. So we've got 2x2 again. We've got this 2x2 set. I'm going to make it look like weak rotation, or again, typical cover 3, like just base camp rules. If I get 3x1, we're going to buzz. It means I'm going to come down on number 3. If it's 2x2, I'm going to weak rotation. So we've got our weak safety down. He looks like he's an off man. Remember, you want levels because you're running cover 1, so the corners are on ball corners. They're pressing. You got your nickel outside. He looks like he's going to funnel right because that's your coverage rules, right? That's your divider. We want to funnel to the post safety. You got your safety splitting the whole formation in the middle, and then you've got your Mike. And for Dallas, they run a lot of nickel, and typically you'll see this on 3rd down, so they'll have a dime. So we have our 6-man box. Everything looks like cover 1. Post snap, our corners are going to press and hinge. They're going to play that squat technique. My boundary safety, who looks like he is uptight and he's kind of playing off man, he's now going to give you a pop out to the big half. He's going to play leverage on, try and get to the apex of 1 and 2. Your dime or your inside linebacker is going to cut to the wall, and then your Mike's going to run the pull. To the passing strength, you're now going to get the free safety who looks like he was in middle of the field close. Now he's going to work to the deep half. Nickel works pop inside, hinges open and gets that seam, and then your corner's going to be reading 2-1 trying to get this. This is where the peak technique comes in. See this a lot in the NFL. Cover 5 if you're a Cougar Saban guy. If you're a 2-man, all that is I'm making it look like 2-man, and then I'm going to peek back. If it's an out route, I'm going to trap it. A lot of times the quarterback will be like, oh, they're in 2-man, or oh, they're in man, I'm going to throw this, and the next thing you know, the corner traps back inside. So I think the Cowboys do a really good job with this safety pop out, letting the Mike, which is usually Van Der Esch, just run through the middle of the field, and then using your nickel and your dime player as these vertical overhang players. I think these non-traditional Tampas are big too. So non-traditional Tampa is a word that you're going to start seeing a lot in TT. We're going to see a lot of pressures off of these. This is where you get your creeper pressures. One of the biggest creeper pressures with an NTT is you're going to get what I call Newton to roll, meaning that your nickel is going to blitz contain, and then you're going to get to roll. Again, you want to look like it's cover 1. Your boundary safety now is going to work over top. Your nickel's going to creep down. Your free safety is going to creep down. You want the quarterback to assume that this is cover 1. Everything, alarm bell should be going off for the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. Everything is going to be cover 1. So if they're a big check with me team, they're checking to the sideline. They're getting their cover 1 rules in. Okay, look, we're going to play. Let's run a slant right here, and then we're going to run double slants right here. And this is what we saw. I thought Michigan did a great job against Ohio State, really changing up their looks about this and running nickel to roll. So your nickel creeps down. Everything looks like it. Nickel goes off the edge. your mic's going to pop through. Remember, you're getting movement up front. So now that mic kind of is detached. He doesn't have to necessarily be kind of a run read. He's going to now start working through. Your free safety now, as he's spun down outside leverage, he pops inside and is going to wall and hinge. He's the wall 2 player. You get a squat technique by the quarter who's going to cut inside number 1. So again, you get these slant routes, you get these man beaters. He's already cut it off. And then you also have this other overhang cutting it. Away from it, you get the DN cutting underneath of number 1. You get the corner overlapping on the big half. So you're playing inverted half away, and then you're playing regular half 2. And you can roll this to the boundary or to the field. Typically what you will see, and I would advise, you want to roll to the field. You don't want to roll to the boundary and play inverted 2 to space. That's just usually, you just don't want to necessarily do that. But again, you still have your 2 wall 2 players and overlap players. You're getting your flat defender from a defensive end. So again, you see that corner just bailing. That quarterback could have a hitch read. He thinks it's going to be wide open. Oh, I've got a hitch read over here. And all of a sudden you've got a defensive end underneath it. So this is one of the other popular ways of doing it. So we showed kind of that weak rotation cover 3, cover 1 with the safeties now rotating back, they're snapping back. Then we get the non-traditional Tampa of I'm that free safety spinning down, that boundary safety spinning to the middle of the field. We're going to show single high. We're going to really make sure that this is going to be a cover 1 look with everybody tight, and then we can get that corner bailing late even. Typically too, and I will say this, I teach this as if you are on the buy 1 side, we don't necessarily want to press and when you know you're alone. So why is the corner to the inverted side off? Normally you know that you're not going to have help, so you want to make sure you're off of that. You can obviously, if you want to press, but he needs to start working deep, because remember, he's got to get to the deep half. And so by 1, you can play this as a bail. I just have in the illustration, if you're watching this on YouTube, he's off, but there's different ways that you can play that as well. I thought, again, the Cowboys, going back to the Cowboys giving you a bear look, these are the other things that you're getting. What they took is, again, this is 3rd down. They're taking Micah Parsons, lining him up in the middle of the field, and they're running what I call Bears path. So that is just essentially the inside linebacker inside on the bear. He's going to go through the A gap. The nose is going to go to the other A gap. And then we get 2 cops or contained rushes from your 4 eyes or 3 eyes. The outside edge guys are just going to drop. There are your wall 2 players. Your corners are playing squad technique. Now I call this pop because your 2 down players, your 2 what appear to be your seam players in cover 1. Again, remember, we're giving a cover 1 look. So if we're looking at this, again, we have 2 receivers to the defensive right. We have a tight end in the C, and we have a single receiver to the defensive left. So my weak safety is going to spin down on the tight end, make it look like cover 1. I'm going to already have my free safety in the middle of the formation, and my nickel is going to be playing 6 or 7 outside leverage on the slot. So what we're going to get post snap is the free safety is actually going to step down to about 12 to 10, and he's going to be your pole runner. So an example of this, and I heard Ron Roberts talk about this, who was a Baylor, now he's at Auburn. He actually prefers that free safety to be a pole runner. So if you wanted to look and, hey, we're a really big cover 1 team, or we're a really big middle of field close team, cover 3 team, how can we run these Tampas, but I don't want my Mike linebacker, I don't want a linebacker running through the middle of the field. Use your safety, who is already used to playing some sort of a high hole technique. Let him squat right there at 10 yards and pick up trash. Your boundary safety now is going to bail to the deep half. Your nickel's now going to bail to the deep half. And again, you're playing squat corner. Why are we playing squat corner? Why are we not trapping? Because we have in these NTTs, these non-traditional Tampas, we're showing cover 1, we're showing cover 3, especially if you're a cover 1 team, you're showing a lot of cover 1. We're showing press. I don't need those corners to trap hard on these flat routes, because then I'm undressing my safety who's coming from low to high. Remember, it's always easier coming high to low than it is low to high. So we don't want these guys getting beat deep because I didn't beat up the receiver first, or I didn't play squat technique and get a trail. So again, I think this is a great example. Again, the Cowboys showing that cover one look on third down, getting Micah Parsons in the middle of the field, who's typically an edge, and letting him rush through on a best practice simulated pressure pass with just bears. Again, if you're interested in this, go to MatchQuarters archive. Just use the finder tool, type in bears. There will be several different ones. So we're running bear show 3 Tampa with 2 pop outs, and 2 not. This is nothing exotic. You already have a lot of this in already. Another cover 2 team that does an excellent job in the NFL is going to be the Bengals, and using these creepers. Again, I showed you and talked about Newton. Now I'm giving you BREES. So BREES is a boundary or away from the passing strength in the NFL. We're going to take the will linebacker, attack the C gap. We're going to play corners are going to be flat. I really like this one that they ran is because you get they played a team and they got in a bunch, right? And so it makes it look like we're going to play kind of this box over top of the trips, and then it looks like it's going to be, oh, we've got our typical cover 2 on the other side. What ends up happening is that free safety to the bunch side steps into the high hole. The corner from outside leverage of this bunch is going to play the deep half. So what they did is they actually ran the inverted side to the passing strength. The nickel cuts to the flat, the defensive end, wall 2, your Mike slings to the weak side 2, and your high hole player again is your free safety. So let's say we spread this out. What would that look like? You would get almost an old school robber look to the 2 receivers, with the defensive end cutting to the number 2 side. Your free safety is playing in the high hole. So if you do get any kind of deep cross or you do get a slant, he can play top down on that. Remember, you've got an end working through the slant window of number 2. So it does, so that typical robber look that you get, your wall 2 player is actually coming from the defensive end and not the safety. The safety is actually sliding into the middle of the field. So again, if you're looking for images on this, make sure to check out MatchQuarters YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to the MatchQuarters YouTube channel, as I do post these with images. But if you're in the podcast, again, we've got a bunch set to the defensive left. We've got a reduced X to the defensive right. We're playing cover 2 to the X, the single receiver. Mike's going to work through, and what I call a sling 2, work to the hook, the wall 2 position, the vertical hook to the by one side. End's going to drop out once he sees that it's passed. He's going to become the wall 2 player. Nickel's actually going to cut to the flat and leverage the flat. Corner's going to play deep half on the outside of that bunch. And then our free safety or a field safety is just going to step down to about 10 and squat and pick up trash in the middle. So again, using your free safety as the high hole player instead of running your Mike through the pole. Again, if you are a 3 high team, you are a single high team, and you don't want that Mike always running through. That's another great one. More of a let's go back to the Cowboys with a cover 0. Let's say I want to run Tampa against a empty set. They actually as the Cowboys get into what I call a bomber's front. So they've got both backers in the B gap. It's that jet alignment, 5s and 3s. Everybody's out wide. It's an A gap mug presentation. They even do it, and I really like this. They have a lot of teams now are starting to do what I call empty checks. So they put the running back at weak, and then they just motion him back in. The Cowboys actually match it up perfectly. They have the corner who's in really loose outside leverage on the reduced X, and then the safeties on top of the running back. So everything looks like cover 0. You have, and going left to right on this, we have a right formation empty. The first receiver outside, the corner's on top, the nickel's on top of number 2, and then the field safety is stacked on number 3, and he's going to be our pole runner. So again, another example of having your field safety, strong safety, 3 safety, however you label him, be the pole runner instead of your backers, especially from a bomber set or a double mug. The boundary safety, again, is on top of A, who's outside and the corner's inside. So let's say, coach, the running back doesn't motion in, they stay in empty. what does that look like? Well, the safety would just work to the deep half of 1 and 2, and the corner would just kind of cut to number 1, because you're getting the Mike or the linebacker cutting number 2 on the X. So you're already building a triangle there. So if he stays, that's the thing. I think you have to be creative as well. The NFL is one of the best in terms of, I want to look at how teams match up with their personnel, but keep their zone structure, because so many teams are doing empty check at the NFL level right now. You need to have answers within it to make everything look the same. This is a great way of doing this. The corner can cut number 1. It's a swipe or a cut technique. The Mike's going to cut number 2, and then your boundary safety, all he has to do is just play outside in on like an inverted half. You're just basically playing inverted cover 2 to that side. To the trip side, the nickel's going to pop out, the corner's playing squat technique. And if you're on YouTube, you can see I got this. They're really just running mesh, and I have that vertical of number 1. The corner kind of works with it until the nickel's able to buy it, and then as that mesh concept comes across, he can now cut the mesh from outside in. Again, that quarterback's not expecting it. Let's say he's getting pressured. He sees the mesh from X open up to the field. He's going to throw it, and then all of a sudden he gets nailed by the corner who's working it. We got a vertical by 3, which means our pull runner free safety ends up basically just playing man on 3. He stacks, but he packs inside, stacks inside, and he works the pull. So again, these are all concepts that I want to make it look like cover 0. I want to make it look like cover 1. I want to make it look like cover 3, but then we're really going to play Tampa 2. And that is where this rebirth of middle of the field open has come, is that it's really getting a redesign. Now let's go to the Patriots. One of their favorite kind of empty formation checks is rain, meaning that if we get a slide to one side, I'm going to pop out, slide away, I'm going to blitz. And it's really a kind of a 2-man game with the 2 interior linemen. Now, what the Patriots did is they played an inverted to Tampa. So the dime, which was Duggar, who is a kind of a freakish athlete anyway, he would run the pole. So they showed rain first. You always blitz empty first, right? And then they came back on the same thing and they ran the pole, where again, we have a trip set. Our nickel is going to we want to make it look like cover 3. So, and they make it look like what I call 3 swap. So they're actually strong rotation, field safeties outside number 2, nickels outside number 3, our dime is inside number 3. The field safety is going to cut to the flat. He's going to swipe number 1, cut number 1. The corner's going to overlap to the deep half, and the nickel, who's outside number 3, he's really just going to cut to 2 and build the wall. So we've got our triangle over 1 and 2. The dime is going to be the pole runner to the 3 side. The Mike, who looks like, hey, again, these 2 guys are mugged. It looks like, again, we're going to get another rain check. He's actually going to pack inside, become the wall 2, as the boundary safety, who is rotated down, is going to cut. So we really make it, and really be honest with you, it goes back. It looks like cover 1, right? I mean, it looks like 0 coverage. So going with the Bombers from the Cowboys with cover 0, we go back to the Patriots. They're running another cover 0 look that looks like rain, right? Rain is a kind of a cover 0 with a rat. And then now we pop into a Tampa. And in fact, I think they got a pick off of this against the Dolphins for a touchdown, a pick 6. So these are just different examples I want to give you that, again, I have film on Twitter, or maybe you've seen it on Instagram or TikTok that I've posted. Now I'm kind of putting it in kind of a sense. Then you can go to, now we're starting to see a lot of these penny defenses, these 5-1 defenses, and how do we get these to look like Tampa? And I'm going to go through the Fangio system. Penny Sam Boston, meaning the Sam's going to blitz, the Will's going to back up, and then the Mike now is going to go. Because you've got this reduction and things like that, you can still build your half, play your half to one side, your half to the other side, with the Mike being a pole runner, but we're doing it from a 5-1 look. Penny Patriot's another example of how you can do that. What's the difference between Penny Patriot and Sam Boston? Boston just means any kind of city name means that we're playing Tampa. And then the kind of the logo off of that. So Boston, New England, Patriot is going to be the drop 8. So they actually have a drop 8 with kind of that bonus hook player, which in the Fangio system, they're already running. So if you run a lot of cover 3 creepers, and you have your guy playing almost like a bonus fire zone, and you run them almost as bonus fire zone coverage, which in the NFL, a lot of them do, especially in the Fangio system, then this is just something new for you to do. So again, I'm giving you the penny look. We've given you a cover one look, the zero look. Now let's transition to the 3 high look. I'm a 3 high defense. I want to get in on some of this Tampa 2 stuff. I think, how do you get to a 4-2-5 with cover 2 on each side from a 3 down? A great example of this is going to be Ohio State and what they do. You get the Sam linebacker who's typically attached to the box. He's going to blitz. I set the 5 technique away, so I'm in what I call an Okie front, but it's an under check to it. So the 5's actually to the by one side, the nose is in a 0, and then I've got a 4-eye who's really going to play like a 3 technique, and then the Sam linebacker comes. So I've got my over front, and then my joke or safety or my middle safety now is actually the wall 2 player. And so you can actually get these you can get into a Tampa 2. That joker, again, doesn't necessarily have to play as the wall safety. He could even be the pull, and you have the Mike cut, just depending on it. You could have the Mike run through the middle of the field and the middle safety cut and become the wall 2 player. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this from the 3 high system. And in a great example of this, again, was Ohio State versus Penn State, where you have a reduction. We get a lot of this kind of this mesh. They're just trying to build a kind of a high-low concept to one side. They're railing. They want to rail that jet motion off. And what you end up getting is you have 2 trap corners, 2 deep safeties. That nickel for them or the middle safety just plays as the middle hole player, and then you get your Mike and your Wells as hook player. So these are all different ways that you can do this. And how does this then transition into a fire zone? Well, remember earlier I said Newton to roll. Now you can do it as kind of a shake 2 is something that I've talked about before. The example that I'm giving here on YouTube is going to be milkshake, meaning I'm bringing the Mike and the field safety. So we want to make it look like cover 1, the boundary. It's all of the 2 roll mechanics, except for you are 1 less guy. So your middle hook player, your weak hook player is actually the nose who's playing sticky, meaning that he's just looking for it. But everybody, Nichols cutting to 2, Will's cutting to 3. If 2x2 weak, he's got that. And then you really just don't have like a middle hole player. So where is it differentiated from Tampa? These trap 2 fire zones, there's no pole player. So just wanted to give an example of everything. Again, what I'm really enjoying now is some of the standards that have been standards for the past 10 years. We're starting to see teams have to, hey, there's a little bit of kink in the armor. Offensive kind of figure this out. How can we be a little bit different? So thanks for joining me again. Match Quarters is a subscription-based entity. So please subscribe not only to the YouTube channel, but make sure to follow me on social media. Make sure to subscribe to the Substack. Get the best in defensive content every week in your inbox. I have links to everything. I make sure to share as much as I can. There's always going to be extra links. Make sure you, again, follow me wherever you social media. On Twitter, it's at @the_coach_A. Everywhere else, it's going to be Match Quarters. Search it up. And again, if you're interested in how to teach quarters, how to teach cover 2 and all the different tags within it, make sure to buy Match Quarters book, as well as keeping up to date as I try and write a book. I've written a book almost every single year. So I try and keep up to date with what's going on. And I've got anything that you're looking for, I've got a book for you. So again, thank you for joining me on this latest episode of the Art of X Show.